decision by the Supreme Court is not a surprise. And in fact, one might look at the fact that it was 9-0 as something that is significant. And what do we take from that? In other words, were all the justices in agreement? They are barring states from removing Trump from the ballot for reasons that he was behind and leading an insurrection, right? So essentially they're saying the states have no power, that power exists in Congress. Mm-hmm. And the power to essentially remove any candidate rests with a congressional vote, not with a decision in the states. Even as we talk about how the states have the power over the vote, the states have the power over their own elections, the federal ruling, the SCOTUS ruling, will trump that, will go above that. There it is in the Wall Street Journal headline: Supreme Court restores Donald Trump's ballot eligibility. Justices reverse Colorado ruling that disqualified Trump for his role in the Capitol attack.
So you have a House that is never going to agree to kick Trump off the ballot, right? Regardless of what happened on January 6th. So what it tells me is that there is no repercussions, no consequences for that we as America don't take seriously what happened on January 6th. Is that, I mean, am I not understanding that?
I understand that. I understand the way in which you asked that question. Since Congress can't get anything done, they're essentially saying, there's just no way that Trump will be removed, and essentially in your question, implicit in your question certainly is the notion that this was an extraordinary circumstance. This guy did lead and foment an insurrection, and for that reason, he should be removed from the ballot. I mean, it seems like it's a defensible position, and it wasn't just Colorado that was pursuing it, but SCOTUS is saying, yeah, you can't. I mean, it was a civil war by now. We've discussed it a million times, post-Civil War aspect of the kind of constitutional defense against insurrectionists getting back into power. But what they're essentially saying is, look, they're a hand-picked court. They're saying there is only one way to remove someone from the ballot, and that would be with Congress. Now, I did want to touch on, and I just think Norman Eisen is so good. Tony, do you have a little bit of that video of his analysis on CNN? Because he makes one other point, and that's on the unanimity with which they made this decision and what can be read into that, what's implied. I mean, can we read anything into it? So here's a little bit of that. Do you have it, Tony, or not? Yeah. Here it is, a little bit of Norm Eisen from about an hour ago on CNN. Go ahead.
In a unanimous ruling, the court said Trump can remain on the ballot for the Republican presidential primary in Colorado. The court struck down an attempt to keep him from running for allegedly taking part in an insurrection. CNN legal analyst Norman Eisen joins us now. Norman, in her opinion, Justice Amy Coney Barrett underscored the unanimity of the decision in, and I quote her here, this politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election case. How significant will it be to the American people that this was a unanimous decision?
Significant that the decision was unanimous in two regards. First, because it establishes that the road to disqualification of insurrectionist candidates for president or other federal offices runs through the United States Congress. That's something that I and others had pointed to in advance as one of the most likely off-ramps here. So in that regard, very important. But there's a second extremely important unanimous aspect of this opinion that's not being noticed, Becky. They did not explicitly deny the lower court findings that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. Multiple fact finders have reached that conclusion. Indeed, if you look at the evidence, the January 6th committee, Colorado, Maine, Illinois have all found that, and that was not expressly overturned. And indeed, the 3 Democratic justices pointed to it in their concurrence. So, in a sense, they have left the question open for the criminal authorities and for the American people what to do about Donald Trump's allegedly criminal conduct.
There you go. Thank you. That was the breakdown. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I thought the second part was a little bit of a wrinkle that you don't hear about, and that was from Norm Eisen, of course. So it overturns Colorado, and that would have removed Trump from the ballot there, and it's full speed ahead. And of course, Trump, no surprise, turns it into a win for America, of course, and now it's the way it should be. And look, Trump talks about this will unify the country more. I mean, it was so weird. I listened to his remarks to hear him talk about unification. I mean, this guy who is the most divisive figure probably in modern history in a presidential political race anyway. And there's an absurdist notion to this, and yet it's totally predictable. He's installed these justices. This was a defensible position. I talked about the fact, you'll remember David Katz came on and said, Mark, when you talked about the fact that it would be precedent setting in a bad way to begin removing candidates from state ballots, that might be something that you could hang a decision on. That's exactly what they did, in oral arguments anyway. We heard a lot of that in oral arguments. That was the time that David Katz was on, around the oral arguments surrounding this case. But again, this 13-page opinion essentially echoed a lot of those concerns. So that's pretty huge in that it's much anticipated. And then the other thing I would just say, just because we're talking about Trump and justice, in what's called the documents case, it's really an espionage case. You understand? The documents removed from the White House, these are top secret documents stored in publicly accessible areas at Mar-a-Lago, in bathrooms, in ballrooms, then also in the bedroom, in the closet,
Well, I mean,
in
really,
his office.
what else are you going to keep in your ballroom?
That's true. That's true.
It's kind of this empty space unless you're really having the ball.
It's
It's empty most of the time. So
Kim's right. I mean, it's underrepresented as a place where you could store documents.
Yeah.
You never really hear, it is when you look at all that space, like, hey, man, when they're not balling, in the ballroom, they can be storing stuff in the, So anyway, that case looks to be a July 22nd date, I believe. But now the judge there, who is a total Trumpy, has said she's skeptical about that being a date that they could legitimately start that trial. So, and she's playing right to Trump because she knows if and when he wins the presidency, he'll bump her up. Right? She'll get up to the appellate court. She's going to be well taken care of by a Trump administration. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.